WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. Well, after years of debate on Monday, mobile sports betting will finally be legal here in North Carolina. And between all the ads featuring your favorite celebrity, promotional deals, and big bucks for the state, it's very easy to get excited. But there is a downside. Coming up in a few minutes, how the state is preparing for the very real issue of gambling addiction that comes with this news. But first, joining us now is sports betting regulation expert and editor of Sports Betting Dime, Robert Linehan. Robert, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on. I know it's a busy time down there in North Carolina.
It is. Lots of folks are really excited about this. Listen, you've watched this play out in states across the country. You write about it. Give us, with that context, give us some perspective about how big of a deal it is to have sports betting roll out here in North Carolina in the next week.
Sure. Well, North Carolina is expected to be a very healthy sports betting market in the country. Not to mention that it's likely going to be the only state to launch sports betting in 2024. Right now, there are no other states that have any scheduled launches. A few states are considering legislation to legalize sports betting, but even if they do get something done, they're likely not going to launch this year. So North Carolina could be the only state and will likely be the only state to launch this year. I know operators, I know sports betting companies are very excited for North Carolina. It's not going to be, North Carolina is not going to be a top 5 market in the country. It's not going to be a New Jersey or a New York. Those two states dominate the sports betting landscape. But there's a lot to be excited about for North Carolina. It's a populous state. You have some crazy sports fans down there. A lot of residents that have been clamoring for sports betting legalization over the last couple of years, as this has been discussed. You have a very healthy college sports fandom down there, and it's perfect that this is launching a week before the March Madness tournaments begin. So there's a lot to be excited about in North Carolina, and there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic that the North Carolina sports betting market is going to be a very healthy one. That
you mentioned the revenue. How much revenue are we talking about here in this first year?
Well, I mean, of course, these are just estimates, but the first, actually, for these estimates for the first fiscal year, the 2023-2024 fiscal year, the estimate is there is going to be no tax revenue coming in for this, but that's just basically how the calendar falls. During the first full year of sports betting, the fiscal estimates say that the state could bring in nearly $65 million of additional tax revenue. By year 5, when, typically year 5 is when the sports betting market has, basically aged and is topping out and is a mature sports betting market. By year 5, North Carolina, according to these fiscal estimates, when the bill was passed, could be seeing an additional $100.6 million in annual revenue. This is revenue that the state was losing out on, for in years past when people were sports betting in North Carolina, because as you know, sports betting was going on in the state before it was legalized. Sure. It was, being handled by offshore regulators, offshore sports betting operators. North Carolina wasn't getting any tax dollars from it. So this should be, $100 million in terms of a state budget. It's not. $100 million seems like a lot, but in terms of a state budget, it's not a ton of money. But this is revenue that the state was missing out on that could have gone to supporting, higher education, youth athletics, all of the good things that the bill has earmarked the tax revenue for. So it's going to be a nice drop in the bucket for the state, and it's just going to be money that they were losing out on in past years.
Yeah, you're talking about state budget that's billions and billions, but still, money's money, and everybody likes money. You mentioned this a second ago, but there's a lot of folks already betting using VPNs, dark websites to bet in other states. So based on your reporting, do you think there are folks who want to bet, haven't been doing that, and haven't currently found a way to do it, that are now going to be jumping on the bandwagon?
Oh, absolutely. This provides North Carolinians or North Carolina residents with a safe and legal way to bet on sports in the state. With some of these offshore regulators, you're basically giving your private information to, an offshore regulator that, who knows what they're doing with what you're giving them. You're basically giving them your bank account information, and who knows who's handling it, who knows who's seeing it. So this absolutely will give people peace of mind. People that might have been hesitant to, throw $25 into an account and, bet on UNC in the upcoming March Madness tournament. So absolutely, this is going to bring in more people to the sports betting market in North Carolina. Like I said, these legally licensed operators in the state will, they're going to provide services that the offshore books don't. There's going to be more responsible gaming. They're going to be paying certainly more attention to responsible gaming issues as opposed to some of the unlicensed regulators. So this is certainly a safer way and a more responsible way for residents in the state to participate in sports betting. And you're going to see that certainly when it launches on the 11th, and you'll see how many people are going to be enjoying this as the state moves forward.
Any common problems that you've seen in rollouts across the states that folks should be wary of in this first year?
Not really. This is old hat for a lot of these operators right now. DraftKings and FanDuel are licensed each in more than 20 states apiece at this point. So they know what they're doing. There's typically not a lot of technical difficulties in the state. I mean, you do have some newer operators in the state, like ESPN Bet, Underdog. This is actually going to be the first state where they launch sports betting, but they've been around for years, offering daily fantasy sports contests. I know for a fact that they likely will have a good platform for customers to use and a great app to use. So I don't think you're going to be seeing too much in the way of difficulties. I mean, there's always, there could always be some people that may not get a bonus that they're offered, or something may happen along those lines when they sign up. But, all of these operators have great customer service representatives. If you do run into a problem, contact the number that they have prominently displayed in their sportsbook apps and on their websites. And I think it's going to be smooth sailing in North Carolina. This is too big of a state. It's too big of a market for these operators not to be on the top of their game when this launches. And that you don't want to be the one operator, you don't want to be the one operator that's down for a couple hours on opening day when the others are raking in the cash and registering new users. So I would not imagine that there's going to be too much that could go wrong. I'll knock on wood when I say that. I'm saying that right now, and then maybe a 7 out of the 8 will have problems on the first day. But typically, it's usually pretty smooth sailing. They've all been here before. This is old hat for them. I really don't think there's going to be too much that could go wrong on Monday, March 11th, when North Carolina launches online sports betting.
Listen, it's very exciting. And Robert Linan, you have given us a great lay of the land here. We do appreciate it.
Thank you, sir, and thank you very much for having me.
Up next on Flashpoint, how the state is beefing up resources to help battle gambling addiction.